So here I am again with the part 2 of tissues chapter. Now we have already studied about plant tissues in our previous video. So in this video we are going to study about animal tissues. We all know that animals are much more complicated than plants. But what is more important is that actually the animals are only made up of 4 main types of tissues. Those are epithelial, muscular, connective and nervous. So we are going to study them all in detail. Let's get started then. So students, where do tissues fit in the living organisms? Life begins as a single cell called a zygote. After fertilization, this cell differentiation into a variety of tissues. A group of tissues with the same function forms an organ. Group of organs form organ system. An organ system forms a whole organism. So what is a tissue? Now specialized cell of the same type that perform a common function in the body is known as a tissue. Now which are the major types of tissue? As I already discussed, epithelial, connective, muscular and nervous. Now epithelial tissue covers or lines the body cavity and forms glands. The connective tissue binds different organs together and supports the body. Muscular tissue performs the movement. Nervous tissue senses and transmits impulses. Now epithelial tissue are of 5 different types: squamous, cuboidal, columnar, ciliated and glandular. So first is the squamous epithelial tissue. The structure of squamous epithelial cells are generally large and flattened. The functions which they generally perform are diffusion of gases, supply friction-free surface for blood flow, protects and supports underlying tissues. Next is the cuboidal epithelial tissue. The structure of these cells are square-shaped cells, closely packed in a single layer, cells attracted to a basement membrane, and the function they perform are absorption of molecules. Then there comes cuboidal epithelial cells. They form the lining of the kidney tubules, lining of various other glands as well. Next is the columnar epithelial tissue. Now these columnar epithelial tissue, they are quite tall and elongated. Is near the base of the cells. The functions generally performed by this tissue is that it plays a role in absorption, protection and for supporting. These columnar epithelial tissue are found in the lining of small intestine, stomach and oviducts. Next is the ciliated columnar epithelium. Now this ciliated columnar epithelium obviously contains cilia on one end of their surface. So the function which they normally perform is improve the movement of the particles. Where they are found? So lining of trachea, nostrils and bronchi consist of the ciliated columnar epithelial tissue. Next is the glandular columnar epithelial tissue. It consists of cuboidal and columnar epithelial cells, unicellular glandular cells with goblet cells scattered among non-glandular cells. The function they perform is production of mucus which serves to lubricate the intestine and makes the movement of food easy. The food as it passes through the small intestine, the movement has to be very easily. That is why these glandular columnar epithelium are present. The glandular word means itself that they are glands. So obviously they are going to secrete enzymes. So next that we are going to start is the connective tissue. I hope you understood the epithelial tissue very well. So now students, the connective tissue. It is basically of 3 types: fibrous connective tissue, supportive connective tissue and fluid connective tissue. So first we are going to start with the fibrous connective tissue. Now these fibrous connective tissue also has more demarcations in it, more classification in it, like loose areolar fibrous connective tissue, dense white fibrous connective tissue, dense yellow fibrous connective tissue, and adipose tissue. These fibers are generally responsible for keeping the organs intact in our body. Therefore, there are so many different fibers. They are also responsible for providing elasticity and flexibility to our body. Now, main is the areolar tissue. Now, this areolar tissue is present beneath the skin and most epithelial layers connecting organs together, filling the spaces between organs and muscles, around muscles and blood vessels. The description of areolar tissue includes loosely arranged tissue in jelly-like matrix, which there are 4 types of living cells present in it: the macrophages, the mast cells, the fat cells, the fibroblast, the collagen fibers, and elastic fibers. I know it all sounds very Greek, and it is like very sophisticated words are there, very complicated, but then also try to understand it. Mainly, this tissue is responsible to it binds the organs or organ components together and supports the structures. It allows for the movement between structures. We can perform any movement we want, and that is due to the presence of these tissues as well, and not only bones, right? The matrix allows for diffusion of substances like gases, nutrients, hormones, and waste, and so many things, because the transfer of these nutrients and molecules are very important, right? So there is a slide to show that the different types of cells that we saw. What are these different types of cells and where are they found, and exactly what are these? So you can find this in this slide. Okay. Next is the adipose tissue. Now, this adipose tissue is found beneath the skin, around the heart and other organs. The function that it performs is for insulation. It is also known as a fat tissue. Okay, as soon as if you cut open the body, if you dissect the body, then you can find one white or yellowish colored substance which is covering all the organs, and this is the one which is very difficult to break in. So these are the adipose tissue. They are mainly responsible for providing insulation, and it also stores the fat. So generally this is the tissue which everyone wants to burn. So the description involves large round cells filled with fat or oil. So the next category is the supportive fibrous connective tissue, which includes the cartilages and bones. So cartilage is also known as the soft bones, as it is responsible for providing movements in our body, which the bones cannot, as they are not as flexible. So the functions that they perform is chondrochitis produces rubber matrix, that is chondrine, which reduces friction at joints, and that's why in the joints the movement is very much easy at the joints where two bones meet. Next is bones. So bones are also known as osteochitis. Okay, the matrix of compact bone is made up of collagen fiber plus calcium plus phosphorus and magnesium. These components arranged in circular form forming a lamellae around the Herbacean canal containing arteries, veins and nerves. And they contain bone cells which are known as osteocytes. They are mainly responsible for support, protection, locomotion, and red blood cells and white blood cells are produced in the red bone marrow. Last but not the least, the category of connective tissue is fluid connective tissue. There are two fluids present in our body. One is the blood and the other one is the lymph. Now, blood contains mainly blood plasma and blood corpuscles. What are corpuscles? The cells which are present inside the blood, which are erythrocytes, leukocytes and blood platelets. Now, what is blood plasma? It is a matrix or it is a fluid in which the blood cells are found. What function it plays is it is like a dispersion medium. It transports digested food, transports cellular waste, hormones, antibodies, and whatnot. Next is the erythrocytes, that are also in simple language known as RBCs. Now, these RBCs are red in color, obviously due to the presence of hemoglobin, which you already are aware of. Then there comes white blood cells. These white blood cells are larger cells with nucleus. Do you know that RBCs do not have nucleus? Yes, RBCs do not contain any nucleus because they cannot divide. Okay, so we will discuss that further later on. So yes, talking about white blood cells, there are 5 different types of white blood cells: neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, monocytes, and lymphocytes. Yes, they all are found in our body in different amounts. Okay, the presence of the percentage of WBC is present, that is taken as if we are suffering from a disease or not, because they are the soldiers of our cells. So if they are present in larger amounts, that means our body is definitely suffering through an infection or a disease. Next comes the blood platelets. Now these blood platelets are mainly responsible for clotting of blood. Now why is the clotting of blood important? Because supposedly if there is a cut in your body, okay, then the blood will flow through it. All the blood can flow through it. So to stop that, these blood platelets acts like a clot around the wound, which does not allow the more blood to pass out of the body. So we have completed the connective tissue. Now next is the muscular tissue. There are 3 types of muscle tissues: smooth, cardiac, and skeleton. Let's start going through them. So first is the smooth muscles. Every smooth muscle fiber is an elongated thin cell which is generally of spindle shaped. Okay, every cell has a very big nucleus centrally situated. These muscles is never connected to bones, can contract for long without causing a spasm. That is, which are also present in the wall of the uterus. Now these smooth muscles, they are found widespread in the body, found in the walls of blood vessels, digestive tract, respiratory ducts, urinary ducts, and reproductive ducts. They are also present in the iris of the eye and form small muscles. Therefore, these are the tissues which are involuntary, okay, which shows involuntary movements. That is, the movements which are not in our own control. Hence, they are also known as involuntary muscles or non-striated muscles. Then next comes the cardiac muscle tissue. Now, the cardiac muscle tissue, as the name itself suggests, it is only present inside the heart. The cells of this tissue contains mainly mitochondria, glucose, and blood supply. Consist of branched cells with 1 or 2 central nuclei. The cells are rectangular and are connected with muscle bridges, or they are known as intercalated disc. So the function mainly of the cardiac muscle tissues are, it causes the rhythmic beating of the heart so that the blood can flow through the whole body. And last but not the least is the skeletal muscle tissue or the striated muscle tissue. Now these striated muscle tissue shows voluntary movement. That is, the movements which are in our own control. Like for example, I can speak when I want. So that is a voluntary movement. I can raise my hand as I want. So that is also a voluntary movement. Hence you can figure it out that where these voluntary muscles could be present. The last tissue which we are left with is the nervous tissue. Now, the nervous tissue is the most important tissue in our body. We are being able to do whatever we want only because of the presence of the nerves or the nerve cells. So, cells of nervous tissue are known as neurons. So, neurons are usually long, large and complex in shape. It consists of a cell body and several cytoplasmic processes, which are also known as dendrites. There is an axon and obviously there are dendrites. So next, moving on to the nervous tissue. Now nervous tissue is composed of highly specialized nerve cells called neurons and supporting cells, that is neuroglia. The neurons are the basic units of communications. They react to stimuli, whether it is a pinch or any stimuli that can occur from the environment or inside the body as well, and transmits the impulses from one region of our body to the other region. Like for example, right now my brain is sending the stimulus to my mouth, and again vice versa also. So this is how I can speak and as well as hear. So hence we have almost completed the nervous tissue. I hope you understood, and right now you can see the structure of neuron as well. It looks as complicated but it is not. So I hope that you understood this chapter very well, and I hope that you are definitely going to study it. Okay, so thank you for watching it. Stay home, stay safe.